If you're thinking, how does he know exactly what I'm going through? It's because I've been there myself multiple times. No matter what you try, you can't seem to control this insatiable appetite. Here's an example from my own last fight. If you've ever cut weight for a fight, I would bet that you've also experienced the turmoil of the post-fight phase. It begins in fight camp. Your Instagram Explore page becomes full of the most horrendous junk food. You start watching competitive eaters on YouTube, and you're constantly dreaming about what you're going to eat after your fight. You have your fight, and whether you're celebrating a win or commiserating a loss, it's time to eat. After maybe a week of reckless abandonment and rapid weight gain, you decide it's time to get back on the wagon. But there's one problem. You're hungry all the time. No matter what you try, you can't seem to control this insatiable appetite. If you're thinking, how does he know exactly what I'm going through? It's because I've been there myself multiple times. This video is the summation of everything I've learned through not only looking at research in combat sports, but also in prepping bodybuilders who go to even more extreme levels of leanness to prepare for a bodybuilding show. And they have to endure a comparable post-show transition, and also my own experiences and the experiences of the hundreds of clients I've worked with myself. So if you've been struggling with the post-fight phase, probably the most challenging phase of combat sports nutrition, stick with me and I'll do my best to help you. The consequences of messing up your post-fight nutrition sparks the beginning of a vicious cycle in which you're heavily under-eating during fight camp and drastically overeating after the fight. This means that your energy intake, your calorie intake, is never matched to your actual needs, your actual output. The result of this is called fat overshooting, where you begin each fight camp heavier and with less muscle and more fat. And this effect compounds over time, and this can easily end up in missing weight, burnout, injury, depression, and even retirement from the sport. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to transition out of the fight into a year-round style of eating that still allows you to eat foods you love in satisfying quantities. But first, let's talk about the first 1 to 3 days immediately after the fight. So firstly, phase 1 after the fight, and I classify this as the first 1 to 3 days. Our goals for this phase are all about letting loose, relaxing, and treating yourself. You've earned it. You've been dieting and training rigorously for weeks, and a few days of chilling out won't matter in the grand scheme of things. And in fact, it's essential for your psychological well-being. During these first 1 to 3 days, eat until you feel satisfied and full. Try not to binge eat. Depending on how strict and how restrictive your diet needed to be in order to make weight, you may find it challenging to control your eating. If this does happen, don't beat yourself up. Remember, a few days of indulgence are minor in the big picture. I recommend avoiding tracking your food during this period. Also, steer clear of the body weight scale. Your weight will likely increase, often by more than 5%, and your physique will change. Most of these changes are due to increased body water, increases in stored carbohydrates, and increased gut contents. This is not fat gain, but mostly temporary weight changes. The key here is not seeing these temporary weight changes as undoing all of your hard work. Now, the perspective and the mindset you have around weight changes can really make or break how you feel about yourself after the fight. So I really want to dive into this here. When you do eventually decide to weigh yourself again, don't compare your now post-fight weight to your fight week starting weight, or God forbid your weigh-in weight, as these figures both represent a somewhat depleted version of yourself. If you're going to compare it to anything, compare it to your pre-fight weight. So the weight you were before stepping in the ring. This represents a fully hydrated, fully fueled version of yourself, and will likely have a much smaller increase from that to your post-fight weight, and that can help ease the psychological stress of seeing a higher number on the scale. Here's an example from my own last fight. At the beginning of fight week, I was 57.3 kilograms. I cut down to 53 kilograms at the weigh-in. Before the fight, I was 58.8 kilograms, and I woke up at 60 kilograms, bang on, 2 days after, and I essentially maintained it from 60 kilograms to 59.8 2 weeks after. Now, if I compared the 60 kilogram post-fight weight to my 57.3 kilogram starting fight week weight, I feel like I gained basically 3 kilograms. Whereas you can see that I'm 58.8 after the refuel alone, which is only a 1.2 kilogram difference from my post-fight weight. I might do another video in the future diving into this in more depth, but this change in reference point can have a huge impact on your mindset and emotional state after the fight. So I wanted to make sure to include it here, and so you don't make this common mistake in your own post-fight phase. Now we're moving into phase 2, which is the transition to year-round nutrition, which is 4 days onwards after the fight. Our goals for this phase are to ease back into a year-round style of eating. This phase is about consuming approximate maintenance calories in a flexible, enjoyable, and sustainable way. The goal is to balance foods you enjoy with a healthy foundation structure, which allows you to maintain an appropriate walk-around weight without leading to extended, uncontrolled overeating and the associated weight gain in that, which is the common situation for most fighters after a fight. Whether or not to track your food during this phase is ultimately up to you. If the thought of tracking fills you with dread, then probably a good idea to stay away from it. But if you do prefer to be more aware of your diet, or if you have another fight coming up soon, you might want to track calories only, calories and protein, or maybe specific meals or specific days. For my one-to-one clients, I will give them specific suggested walk-around weight ranges or guidelines based on their preferred weight cut magnitude, so how much they typically cut as a percentage of their body weight over fight week, and their typical weeks of preparation. For you guys watching this video, a good reference point is to walk around somewhere between 10 to 15% above your weight class. Lower in the range if you fight more frequently or do a smaller weight cut, higher in that range with no more than 15% if you fight less frequently or do a large weight cut. Now, onto setting your nutrition targets if you do decide to track after the fight. Post-fight, your energy expenditure may drop due to reduced activity levels, i.e. reduced training. However, this drop most likely won't be as significant as you might expect because of the high energy cost of healing tissue and also potential upregulations in your non-exercise energy expenditure. As a quick and easy calculation, take your average weekly weight loss in kilograms over the last 2 to 4 weeks of your fight camp, not including the fight week, and multiply that number by 1,000. So for example, if you lost 0.5 kilograms per week, 0.5 times 1,000 is 500. Then add this number onto your calorie intake over that same time period. So 2,000 calories, let's say that was your average calorie consumption, plus 500, 2,500. Now you can add an optional 100 calorie bump on top of this to account for the increased thermic effect of food, increased non-exercise activity and movement, and just to allow for a slightly larger budget to allow more flexibility. But equally, you can leave it off if you want to take a more cautious approach. I generally recommend including it, but not forcing yourself to hit the target if you do feel full and satisfied. Now, in terms of what to actually eat, I create a post-fight sample menu for my one-to-one clients to provide a flexible framework, essentially as a tailored example of how they could balance, a few healthier meals with a large budget of discretionary calories. This menu isn't a strict plan, but it's just a guide to help them structure their daily eating and to just have some structure, which most fighters simply don't have, and they just end up grazing throughout the day. Now, I strongly recommend creating this for yourself. If you don't work with a nutritionist, you could hire one. You could join my Fighter Nutrition course. I'm sure I'll be able to put some links in the description. Or you could even use a tool like eatthismuch.com or even ChatGPT to write you a basic starting meal plan. Regarding your activity levels, most fighters will go from an intense training schedule to basically doing nothing after the fight. Now, I recommend that you guys maintain low impact activities, things like going for walks in nature, maybe cycling or swimming, even things like sauna sessions. These activities can help to keep your energy expenditure high, support physical and psychological health. You know how much of a struggle it is most likely when you have a break from training and suddenly that thing you've been doing every day is no longer a part of your life. It can really affect you negatively. Recovery through increased blood flow, so increased nutrient delivery to the injured tissues. Regardless of how good you are, unless you're completely untouchable or your opponents are terrible, then most fights will involve some degree of impact to the brain. You may be able to support your brain health by taking creatine monohydrate, 5 grams per day, and 3 to 6 grams of fish oil per day, or you could consume 2 or more portions of fatty fish per week, things like salmon or mackerel, for example. You also want to make sure your diet is just healthy generally, including a variety of fruits, vegetables, spices, and teas, which are rich in antioxidants and polyphenol compounds. Another really important variable for brain health is sleep. Make sure you're getting adequate, high quality sleep. Avoid caffeine in the late afternoon and evening. Limit alcohol as much as it's realistic for you. And try reading before bed instead of using your phone. To wrap up with some final additional guidelines. Aim for at least 2 solid meals per day that contain protein and vegetables. Your third meal can then be more relaxed. For these relaxed meals, make the most of them. Go out for meals with your friends, your family, your partner, rather than just sitting at home on your own ordering low quality junk from a delivery app. You want to enjoy these social occasions to prioritize your social and psychological health, especially if you've not been able to, go out and see your friends during fight camp because you've been, deep in preparation. You want to support your social health as well. And as a general rule of thumb, your post-fight diet should generally resemble your year-round diet, but just with a little bit more flexibility, a little bit looser control, and more social occasions in there. If you aim for about 75% pretty healthy and 25% less healthy, then you're doing pretty good and better than most fighters are, frankly, in this post-fight phase. Remember, these are not strict rules. You're an adult, you can make your own decisions. This advice is here to help you manage the challenging post-fight period effectively, or at the very least more effectively than you would have done without this guidance. That's it for today. This is something I've been meaning to record for a while, so I hope it's helpful. Remember, don't just listen to this information, you have to put it into action. Otherwise, it's worthless. Come back to this video next time you're preparing for a fight to help you create your own post-fight plan. If you have any questions or requests, a DM on Instagram is probably the best way to reach me. If you want more stuff from me, the link in my Instagram bio @JamesNicholNutrition or in the YouTube description box will direct you to all my best free and paid content. If you only check out one of the links, make it the top one that says "Start here, free fighter nutrition report." You will answer 16 questions and I will assess your current diet and where you've got the most room for improvement. I'm very proud of it, and it's not cheap to use the software that I use to create it, frankly. So get your fighter nutrition report today. It's free, and if for nothing else, just so I get my money's worth on this software. That's it for today. Catch you in the next one.